Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Bible Thumper Podcast, where somebody's got to say it. My name is Patrick Hayes, your regular host, and with me today in the studio is my beautiful wife, Joanna, and her camera's not working. So right now she is a black rectangle because her screen, the camera is not coming through. And let me tell you, when you start a podcast that's supposed to be live 20 minutes late, you're not feeling the most spiritual that you've ever felt because you've just been, pulling your hair out for 20 minutes trying to get stuff to work. So here we are. So Joanna, welcome to the studio. You look amazing.
Oh,
you
thanks.
Look better than you've ever looked in the studio. I don't know what you did. I wish the people at home could see you, but they cannot.
Oh, you're just buttering me up.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we are going to talk about, or I should say, our title is Christian Family Planning for Success. And we already have someone watching us live, and we appreciate you being on here with us, Lindsay. So we are talking about Christian family and planning for success. And the reason we are talking about this is because today, I should actually say yesterday, it is sundown. The sun has set. And over the last 2 days was the holy day, Rosh Hashanah. And that led us to doing a little bit of introspection and planning. So I wanted to start out by just explaining what the holy day of Rosh Hashanah is and what, kind of our little tradition here was. And I thought that even with the holy day of Rosh Hashanah aside, I think that the topic is really good for Christian families. So that's why, you and I are talking about it tonight. So bear with me. We're going to talk a little bit about the Bible. We're going to be in the Old Testament. We're just going to mention what this feast is and what's going on. And then after that, we're going to get into kind of our topic, which is talking about Christian families, children, the church, raise a good family, and how this all applies. So, to begin, if you go all the way back in the book of Exodus, we're looking at the time when Moses was freeing the nation of Israel from Egypt. So Moses goes in, he tells Pharaoh to let my people go. Pharaoh says, no, get lost. And then God, through Moses and Aaron, perform 10 miracles that we typically call the 10 plagues. And the plagues kind of beat up on the nation of Egypt and Pharaoh and his people. And over the course of a little bit of time, they finally relent. And Pharaoh says, you know what? We've had enough. Please leave. So then what happens is and this comes from the last plague, which is the Passover, which is certainly the most famous plague that we read about back there in Egypt. And it is the beginning of one of the feast days that God's people continue to celebrate for centuries. And then what happens is we have the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is a week long. And that also had to do with them fleeing from Egypt. So they didn't have the time to let their dough rise. They fled they ate the Passover supper with their shoes on their feet, and they fled with their kneading trowels, and they weren't able to, let the bread rise. So they ate unleavened bread for this period of time. And then in that week, you have the Feast of First Fruits. Okay, that's just very fast and dirty history of the beginning of the feast days. So then what you find is you count from the Feast of First Fruits, which is all on Sunday, and you count 50 days. You actually count 7 Sabbaths, 7 weeks is 49 days, and the next day is the Feast of Pentecost. Now, out of every feast day in the Bible, that's the one that Christians mostly know about because we know about Pentecost again. It's a very big event in Acts chapter 2 with the new church that Jesus started after he ascended into heaven. There is the night of Pentecost, and the Holy Spirit comes. There's a big. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Pentecost did not start in Acts chapter 2. Pentecost started back in the book of Exodus. And what happened was Moses and the nation of Israel, they left Egypt and they crossed the Red Sea, and they actually traveled down the Sinai Peninsula quite a ways. And then they crossed the Red Sea. And I don't have maps. I'm just kind of giving a quick lesson here. We can look it up and get into maps later. And then what they did was they went to Mount Sinai. So that was their first destination that God brought them to. If you want to look up where Mount Sinai is, you can Google the Mount of Almonds in Saudi Arabia. And one thing that's neat about it is you find that the top 25%, top third of the mountain is charred black from some kind of fire.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
Pictures.
it's really neat. And this did not happen to any of the other mountain peaks around it. And one of the other things you find is that when you read through the book of Exodus and the book of Leviticus, you find that, and I should really just stop with the book of Exodus because that's when Moses was on Mount Sinai. God came down onto the top of the mountain in a flame of fire more than once. So that's what we believe is Mount Sinai, the Mount of Almonds in Saudi Arabia. When Moses went up on the Mount Sinai and received the 10 Commandments, received the law of the Lord, and he received I call them blueprints to build a tabernacle, that was Pentecost. That was the first Pentecost. That's what happened on the first Pentecost. So then what you have is later on, you have Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and and you have Sukkot. Rosh Hashanah, which was this weekend, it ended at Sunday. It ended at sundown this Sunday evening. Rosh Hashanah is the Feast of Trumpets. And I want to just read to you now a little bit about what the Bible calls Rosh Hashanah when it first showed up in Exodus. I'm going to read a handful of verses, and then we're going to kind of go into a little bit of New Testament theology, and then we're going to get into how it's celebrated today, and we're going to talk about Christian families. I promise we're taking the long way around, but we are going to talk about Christian families. But I don't feel like I'd be doing the podcast justice if we didn't get into the Bible first. Any thoughts so far? Anything you want to jump in with?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in Exodus chapter 19, in verses 10 through 20, we find that during this time, God is giving the Torah at Mount Sinai. And what this is going to do later on, we're going to see that God wanted to deal with the nation of Israel. And this is going to be a picture, I believe, of the rapture one day. So Rosh Hashanah is the Feast of Trumpets. So let's pick it up in Exodus chapter 19, starting in verse 10. And the Lord said unto Moses, go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, take heed to yourselves that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall be surely put to death. There shall no man, boy, I got a typo here from the printer. I think there shall no man's hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount. And Moses went down from the mount unto the people and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, be ready against the third day, come not at your wives. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God. And they stood at the nether part of the mount and Mount Sinai was altogether on smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of the furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mount, and the Lord God called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. And you know what?
So is that why it's called Feast of Trumpets?
Well,
I really never knew.
Yes, and what we find later on, so in Leviticus 23, verses 23 to 25, we read about, Rosh Hashanah, gives a little bit more instruction. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, that's what this is in the Jewish calendar, in the 1st day of the month, ye shall have a Sabbath, a memorial, of blowing of trumpets, and holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made on by fire unto the Lord. All right, so one thing that you have to understand, and this is a little weird because people would say, well, Rosh Hashanah, which we should all know, is the new year. This is the celebration of the new year in the Jewish calendar. The first thing people will ask is, I thought you said it was the 7th month.
Right.
Well,
right.
I did. It is the 7th month. And then you say, well,
why is it?
Why is it the new year? So one thing a lot of folks don't understand, unfortunately, is that there are 2 Jewish calendars. God set up a calendar all the way back in the book of Genesis with Noah. And God said, this is the 1st month, and this is the such and such day of this month, and this is how it works. And then what happened is we read later on in the book of Exodus, and you know what? I don't even think I put this. I didn't even set this. I didn't even give myself the notice. So sorry, folks, you're going to have to do some of your own homework. Later on in the book of Exodus, we're talking, century or so later, God tells Moses with the nation of Israel, this is going to be the 1st month in your calendar. And he was talking about the month of Nisan. Nisan being the month that has the Passover. So what happened was God didn't give them 12 new months with new names. All God did was hit the reset button on the calendar and said, okay, today,
in the middle of the year,
God said, this is the beginning of months. So what they have till today is they have a civil calendar and they have a religious calendar. And all it is off. So you start counting the beginning of the civil calendar here, you start counting the beginning of the religious calendar here. So what we are talking about, so the calendar that we read about throughout the entire Bible is the religious calendar.
Okay.
And the first day of that religious calendar, so the religious year, it's kind of like how we have the fiscal year and we have the calendar year when you're doing your taxes. So it can be off. It's the same situation. So the beginning of month in the religious calendar is the month of Nisan. And that month, on the 14th day of the 1st month, is when you have Passover. And when you're reading through the whole Bible, every time God is talking to the nation of Israel, he is using the religious calendar.
Why do you think why did he do that, do you think?
So I can get, okay, so one of the reasons he did that is to hide some really neat truths about the Bible from the people who are not willing to study it out and do their own homework.
Okay.
So what you find is that there are events that happen during the civil calendar that we find all the way back in the days of Noah in Genesis chapter, I think, 7 and 8. And that happened in the civil calendar. And someone might say, okay, well, why did the Holy Spirit give us those dates?
Right.
Okay, so now I feel like I got to look this up and tell everyone.
Okay.
All right, so going back to Genesis. Folks, I haven't even, we're all over the place here. This is going to go great. All right, so let's see if we can find this. Noah did according to the Lord God commanded, and passed up 7 days. The water entered Noah and the beast, and they went unto Noah, and the flood 40 days and increased, and the waters prevailed. Okay, here we go. In Genesis chapter 8, verse 4, and the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat.
Mm-hmm.
The 7th month on the 17th day, the ark came to rest. And this was the beginning of Noah's new life. They're
Right.
done with the water. The ark came to rest.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the Holy Spirit tell us it was the 7th month of the 17th day? Why does that matter? It matters because what we find out is that later on in Exodus, we find out that the 7th month of the civil calendar is the first month of the religious calendar, the month of Nisan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Totally lost
I'm
so far.
It
hasn't hit yet. It hasn't landed. Okay, that's all right.
Was that obvious to everyone else?
No, it's not obvious to anyone.
All I'm saying is,
and
okay,
I'm the only one that gets excited about this
I
stuff.
think this is awesome.
No, it's amazing.
You're going to have to spell this out for
I'm
me.
going to spell it out for everybody.
If anyone can see my face.
So,
Blank stare. Wow.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so the 7th month, the 17th day. So follow me. The 7th month in the civil calendar is the first month in the religious calendar, the month of Nisan. On the 10th day of the first month of the religious calendar, the Jews were to take to them, each family, a lamb.
Mm-hmm.
They were to keep that lamb with their family.
Yeah.
And then what they were to do on the 14th day of the first month was they were to kill that lamb.
Yeah, Passover lamb.
Right? So that was the 14th day. The lamb dies. Well, when you go several centuries later, we find out that Jesus was the Passover lamb.
Mm-hmm.
He was crucified on the 14th day of the first month, the month of Nisan. You say, well, that's great, Patrick. It's talking about
I mean, I do think that's
the 17th day.
Right.
Well, what happened 3 days later?
Oh, he rose.
He rose.
Yeah.
So the ark comes to rest upon the mountains of Ararat on the exact same day of the year that Jesus comes forth out of the tomb.
Wow.
But you would never know that if you didn't do your homework and see that there was a civil calendar. And then 7 months into it, God hits the reset button and says, this is the beginning of months for you. And that's the religious calendar. So the month of Nisan, which is the 7th month in the civil calendar, is the first month in the religious calendar. And on the 14th day is when they kill the lamb for Passover. And that meant nothing to any of the Jews in the Old Testament, except that 3 days after they crucified Jesus, it turned out it was a Sunday. And that's the Feast of First Fruits. It's always on a Sunday. Jesus rose on the first day of the week. Noah and his ark came to rest on what would one day be the Feast of First Fruits with Moses in Egypt and the day of resurrection for Jesus, the Messiah.
Wow. I never would have put that together.
Yeah, nobody
Not in a million years.
Nobody likes doing the math in the Bible. But every time God gives us numbers and dates, they're in there for a reason. There are special little nuggets of truth that we can learn about and we can study and can be interesting to us. but who's willing to put in the time?
Right. Well, most people are not. I mean, I never could have put that together, though. I don't know if I could have put that together.
So here's what you have to do. If you want to learn how to be a great Bible teacher, the very first thing you have to ask yourself is this question. And you ask yourself this question every time you open the Bible and read it. Why is that there?
Yeah. I've done that a lot. I read I'm like, "Why? What's that for?"
You got it. What's that
And
detail in there for?
I just don't always know personally how to find out.
I get it. But that's step one is why is that even
What
in
is
there?
that?
Okay, God put it in. It wasn't a mistake.
No, right.
God
Right.
didn't just throw it in there because he needs some B-roll in his
Some filler.
documentary to fill up time. Okay, God put it in there for a reason. All right,
Mhm.
we are
Okay, so now
all over the place. So, okay, so the Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets, what this is going to look forward to, I believe, this is conjecture. I don't want anyone thinking that I'm setting a date or predicting the future. But what we find is that all the major events in the life of Christ happened on holy days. His birth, his resurrection, his baptism, his crucifixion, they all happened on a holy day. I believe his second coming is going to happen on a holy day. I believe it's going to be the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah. 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 16 and 17, if you can remember what we just read about in Exodus and the people going to meet God on the mountain.
Mhm.
Listen to this in 1 Thessalonians 4. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout. That's what God was doing on Mount Sinai. He was going to descend to meet the people. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God. And the dead in Christ shall rise first, and we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. So shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words. And one of the things that Moses told the people is, you guys are going to meet God in so many days. You need to purify yourselves. You need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's the same. It's a reflection of us getting saved
I think it is.
to be prepared. That's what
Sure.
you do.
And if someone doesn't think that, that's fine. But,
Well, I get
I
that.
certainly see it. All right. So now, how does this have anything to do with what we're talking about today with a Christian family? Well, in Rosh Hashanah, which is the new year in the Jewish calendar. So we were talking,
Not the
the religious
spiritual
one, not the religious one, because in the
What?
religious
Oh, no.
one, we're in the seventh month.
Oh, wait, so this
This
is
is-
Rosh Hashanah.
This Rosh Hashanah in the religious calendar in the seventh month is the first day of the new year in the civil calendar.
Okay, so why do we follow the civil calendar for the feast day?
We don't. All the
Oh.
feast days are based on the religious calendar. It just so happens that Rosh Hashanah lines up with the civil calendar.
Okay.
So it's the new year on the civil calendar, the first calendar that God gave to Noah. All right. So that's why, even though it's the seventh month, we still call it the first of the year.
Mhm.
This is the new year.
Okay.
Okay. So that answers that question, albeit poorly. That's how it fits. All right. So it is a fall holiday, and it takes place in the beginning of the month of Tishri, which is the seventh month of the Jewish religious calendar, counting from Nisan, which is the first month of the Jewish religious calendar, which we find in the spring. Now, it is a time of rejoicing, but it is more importantly a time of introspection. It's time to take stock of one's life. And it is in preparation of the next holy day that is coming, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the most holy day of the year in the Jewish calendar. Yom Kippur is the one day of the year where the high priest goes into the temple, goes into the Holy of Holies, and communes with God. So, again. And we can maybe talk about this next week, and maybe I can be a little bit better prepared rather than just trying to recall all this from memory. On Yom Kippur, it is a day when we are commanded to fast. So if nobody has ever fasted before, just look up the dates. You can fast on Yom Kippur. You will be fasting with millions and millions of people all around the world. It's a special day, okay, for fasting. It is a day when we go to God and we ask God to forgive us. This Rosh Hashanah, the week before, is in preparation of Yom Kippur, where we look at our life, we take stock in our life, and we look at, where are my failures? Where do I need to get better? Where do I need to improve? What can I do? I hate to compare it to a New Year's resolution because, that's, a secular idea. But I believe that secular idea came from what the Bible says. This time when we would take stock of our lives and decide to make changes. Okay, so what Joanna and I did. So let's now talk about Christian families and try to bring this around full circle and kind of give an idea for everyone that I think will be very helpful if people do this. So what we did was Joanna and I met and we, got out pen and paper and we talked about, what does our family look like? What do we want to change? What things in our family are getting in the way of us being good, strong Christians? What is getting in the way of our family being more of a force for God? What do we need to get rid of? What do we need to start doing? Where are we failing? What's lacking? And we just talked about, and we went over several different subjects. We went over spiritual, we went over financial, we went over our kids, we went over physical. So we went over a lot of different subjects, and we just tried to talk about, okay, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to change? What can make our family better? So to give you an example, we did this last year as well. And financially, what we were talking about today was really just, how is it going with our new financial plan with money for our family? And we kind of started that plan, just a little bit before before what we would call our new year, where we put in place the plan and decided, we're going to start this on the 1st. And we've been going for almost 3/4 of the year now, because we're about halfway through September. And we just decided that we wanted to be a little bit more responsible with the money that God gives us. And we decided we are going to, we always would pay our tithe. We would give God 10% of every dollar that we earn, we find, we're gifted. I mean, if it falls out of the sky, okay, we give God 10% of that. But other than that, we said, okay, we want to invest this percentage of the money that comes in. We want to save this percentage of the money that comes in. We want to invest this percentage of the money that comes in another avenue. And we decided we're going to, start paying this much extra on our mortgage every month. And we're going to try to get our house paid off more quickly. We just went through and we said, look, this is how much money we made. We must have wasted a lot of it because, it's more that we looked at, this is what our bills are and this is this, and don't get me wrong, we did some big projects around the farm that were good, and we're glad we spent money on a few things. But what we saw was we could be doing better with the money that God gives us. So let's make a change. This year, we revisited that and said, okay, what do we think? How's it going? Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Wondering if we should make changes, but we decided no.
Yeah. In the area of finances, we decided we're going to continue. We're going to stick with, what we were doing, and we were happy with that. Now, to give everyone some Bible to go along with this, if you go to Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18, you read, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." It's a very famous verse. And it's a verse that I would encourage every father to kind of make their, I don't want to say their mantra, but it needs to be a verse that is in the forefront of their mind. As the father, the head of the household, you need to have a vision for your family. And what I was explaining just in the description of this video is simply families fail because they don't discuss goals. They don't set goals. And then a plan is the practical steps we are going to take to accomplish that goal. So if you don't do this, if you don't decide, and you don't have to just do it once a year, and it doesn't have to be on Rosh Hashanah. We did this because this is kind of one of the ways we celebrate this holy day. Okay. All of the holy days are meant to be a blessing to us, and we wanted this to be a blessing to our family. So we sat down and we did this. You can do this more than once. Personally, I think it would be a good idea for us to maybe, do this
Yeah,
at the 6-month mark as well, and just kind of like, check back in. But there are so many people that never do this, and a year goes by, and all of a sudden they're wondering, man, nothing got better. And your life will be exactly the same if you don't set goals and form plans to achieve the goals. You have to have that conversation. You have to talk about goals, whether they be financial or spiritual or otherwise. And then you have to put plans in place. And you need to do this with your family. It's a good thing to do. It's how a family can be strong. It's how a family can see a problem that's coming up and say, hey, this is not good for us. And we're just kind of letting this thing go. And we need to address it. So that's what we did. Any thoughts so far?
Oh, well, after we went through our different goals for us the kids, I was thinking exactly what you just said. How you need to put this plan in place, and how often we just get in a rut and on autopilot. We never hit reset. We just keep doing the same things. And how good it is what we're doing. Just taking a moment to stop, take a inventory of the different parts of our lives and adjust what needs to be adjusted and make a plan to do it. Anyway, I just thought I was thinking the same thing. That was one of my points.
Yeah, great.
You beat me to it.
No, that's good. It's so easy to get in that rut and just keep going.
It is. And especially, I find it's even more so with kids.
Yeah.
I get in a deep rut. Oh, I'm tired. Just let them do that.
Yep.
Fine.
Whatever's going on.
I don't want to be bothered right now.
Just ignore it, and
it'll be okay. I'm sure it'll be okay.
Head in the sand. Ostrich parenting.
But you get tired.
You do. It's hard. It's a lot of work. We're not saying anything we're talking about is easy. We're not saying you're going to want to do it. We're just saying, look, if you want to have a good, strong, successful family,
you got to put effort in.
You got to put a lot of effort in. Way more. Whatever amount you think you need to put in, you got to put in so much more. Yeah, double it. When I look at our family, all I ever see are our failures. And that's a problem with me. It's the same with my life.
Right.
Okay. When I look in the mirror, I see, Patrick's failing with this, and he needs to shore up this, and he needs to change that. No matter how many successes we have as a family, or I personally have, I don't take a victory lap. I don't pat myself on the back. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about how great I am.
You really should. It's fun. I do it all the time. Look. Ooh.
Boy,
I'm so good.
We are doing great. I just continually look at, okay, great. We succeeded here. We made a change. It's good for me. It's good for my family, whatever. What can I do next? I want to grow. Yeah. I want to be better. All right. So let's talk about some stuff that we changed.
What did we do today?
What did we need to do to be better. So what I decided was I was going to spend all of my time writing down Joanna's failures, and I'd like to read them to you now.
Oh no. Oh, there's not many. I see. His paper is empty.
So one of the things that we decided about that I'm excited about. Okay, so how about this? Before we even go any further, I also ran through this exercise with our kids. So I got them out and we talked about all this and we got them each a pad and paper and we wrote down the other kind of titles, spiritual, financial, physical. And we went through and we said, okay, what areas of your life do you need? Where are you failing? Where are you not happy with your own life and you want to make a change? And we talked about it and the kids had some questions and I gave them like 20, 30 minutes and they worked on it and I went out and checked on them and answered some more questions. And then after that, they wanted to continue working on it a little more. And then I went out and we kind of all shared what was on our list.
See, that by itself, I thought was really good. I've made countless goals for myself in my life. So many. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know where that came from. Probably New Year's resolutions, but I never even thought to tell the kids, "Hey, this is a good exercise."
Yeah,
and I was so glad you thought of it because, well, duh, they should. There's so many things like that where I'm doing it and I don't even think, "Oh, I need to teach this to my kids."
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
And that was one of the points that I brought up. I said, look, guys, you guys are going to be out of the house at some point. And when you're in the house, you may look at your life and say, you know what? I don't like this part of my life. I don't like the way this is going. I feel like I'm lazy in this area. I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to here. I feel like I'm wasteful here. You guys can do this exercise where you just get out a piece of paper and you're honest with yourself. You write down, what are my faults and failures? What are the things in my life that I'm not happy with that I want to change so that I can improve? And after you write those down, you're going to set your goal. So I'm totally neglecting this thing. Okay, great. So, one of our kids said, you know what? I don't feel like I pray enough. And I said, okay, great. And I said, so, what's your goal? He says, well, I want to pray more. I said, great. How are you going to do it? He's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you need to write down who, what, when, where, why, and
when
how.
am I going to do this?
You
How
got
many
it.
minutes?
You got it. And that's exactly what we went over is where are you going to pray?
Good. Okay.
And there's got to be a spot because it's a house full of 8 people. Can you find a quiet spot? Where do you think it's going to work? When are you going to do this? You going to do it in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, before bed, after dinner? What do you have a plan? If you don't plan it, probably not going to happen. Nobody, how about this? And I always bring it back to someone who is successful physically, someone who goes to the gym, someone who's in great shape, someone who can run for miles and miles, someone who achieves goals physically. Because I was an athlete. My whole life I was an athlete. In college, I was an athlete. You had to have goals. And the only people that achieved those goals were the ones that had a plan, a very specific plan as to how to achieve that goal. And what they had to do was they had to know when I'm going to train, how I'm going to train. I'm going to train with someone. What's my diet going to be like? What's the regimen? They had to have a plan. Nobody gets in great shape haphazardly. Like, I feel like working out today. Maybe I'll do it. That's not going to shed the pounds and make you strong. The plan is every single day I get up and I do this many body weight squats. And what I'm going to do is every so many weeks, I'm going to add this many more. And that's how I'm going to get stronger. And it's a plan. You have a time, you have a way you're going to do it. It is no different spiritually. So he came up with, okay, I'm going to pray for 5 minutes. I said, great. I'm going to do it at this time. I'm going to do it in this place. And he said, I'd like to slowly increase the amount of time that I pray. I said, that's also great. I said, how about we get you a little notebook, just little marble pad notebook, something that can fit in your pocket. And you can write down the things you want to pray for. So that way you don't forget. So you can go through your prayer list and it's a good way to keep track of what you're praying for and when those prayers come true. So anyway, that was one of them. Other kids had financial goals. Other kids had physical goals. There were lots of different things they wanted to do, stop, or start doing. And we just went over some of the, kind of
Mhm.
how to.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I really don't have more to add other than I think that's wonderful, and I wished I'd thought of it, but you did. And now after the podcast, I'm curious who said what. We'll find out later.
Well, and you can ask the kids.
I will.
Um, so
yeah, I'm trying to think of what I was going to add to that, but
sure.
No, just again, them having goals for themselves. Why on earth did I not think of that earlier?
Well, and really, it's good for someone to, put it down, pen and paper, form a plan, rather than, because if you don't go through the process of having a goal and a plan, then it's really just a hope and a dream.
Happen.
Yeah, and hopes and dreams don't usually come true.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, there's a plan of action.
I did have a question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So one of our boys said he wants to run a mile every day, and he's how old is he? 12.
Mhm.
Okay, so I almost resisted him. I almost suggested a lower goal.
Whoa!
It's like
lower the bar, son.
I feel bad. I actually said, "Well," that was my response. "Well, son, do you want to just he wants to run a mile on the treadmill?" I said, "Do you want to start off with 2 days a week?" But so I used to train for marathons, and I know the pain of overtraining.
Sure.
So what do you do? Do you suddenly come out like, "No, that's too much," or how do you?
Well, so here's the thing. The the goal is to run a mile every day.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you start there.
Well, it's kind of where I was at. I was like, okay.
I want to, one of our kids is like, I want to squat 200 pounds. Okay, that's fine. You can get there. Our 8-year-old's not going to get there, but our 16-year-old, if he wanted to squat 200 pounds, fine, we can get you there. We're not going to start there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the way that we're going to get there.
Yeah, how do you not make them feel like they are dumb or that goal's not for you, sweetheart.
No. So, and that's the thing is,
how do you help them achieve it reasonably?
Well, it's in the plan.
Okay.
That's a great goal. I want to run 5 miles every day. That's fine. Okay. It's a great goal. It's pretty ambitious. That's a lot, but that's fine. We're not going to start there.
Yeah.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to run a 1/4 mile every day for 1 week, and we're going to see how you feel. We're going to see how your knees feel. We're going to see how your muscles feel. We're going to go through that process. And we're going to teach you how to get hydrated at the appropriate time before you run. We're going to talk about, what to eat and how far before. And we're going to talk about some of these different things. And then at the end, what we're going to do is we are going to see how you feel. And if you feel great, you feel like $1 million, great. We're going to bump it up. We're going to try a 1/2 mile, on week 3 or 4. You bump it. So I don't see a problem with the goal. I mean, honestly, that's not an outrageous goal. If it is a little too ambitious, then help them with the plan.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
I wanted to do it in a nice way where he didn't feel discouraged, like, oh, forget it.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. I want to read 10 chapters of my Bible every day. Okay. Well, that's great. I think that's wonderful. That is a pretty serious time commitment. And it's going to be hard to do. So how about we start with 4? If you read 4 chapters a day, you will get through the entire Bible in 1 year. Does that sound like a great goal? Okay, great. Here's a reading plan.
Yeah.
They're everywhere to get through the Bible in 1 year. See how you're doing for a month. And then if you think you can bump that up, then give it a go. Okay, see if you can bump that up. See if you have the time in your schedule. And we're going to help you get there. Okay, so now let me bring up something that I put on my list that is going to try to help with the planning and the execution. So I had everyone in the family email me their goals and just a very brief plan of the who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Yeah, I love that.
And what I'm doing is I have a notebook for each kid. So I have, you know, 7 different notebooks, one for each kid and one for you. Your names are going on them. And one of the things that I'm going to do is every Friday, I'm going to check in with everybody in the family. So for me, I don't work on Fridays. I take Fridays off and I spend the day reading the Bible, studying the Bible for my message that I'm going to preach at church that night. I spend the time reading other Christian books to help me, broaden my knowledge base. And because I'm home, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take somewhere between 5 to 15 minutes with each person in the family, and we are going to be able to keep track of the things that we want to do, because we've all been in the situation where we have these ambitious goals. We want to, take on the world for Jesus, and we want to change all these great things. And we want to lose 40 pounds and we want to get strong, and we have all these great things, which is wonderful. But how easy is it to just talk about it and then it gets forgotten in a week, and 6 months later you're like,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
yeah, we mentioned something about saving up money and starting a retirement fund, and it never happened. So that's why what we're doing, I had everyone email them to me, and every Friday we're going to jot these down in the notebook, and we're going to find out, how are you doing with this? How is this going? How are you doing with handling your money? How are you doing with your prayer time? How are you doing with your Bible reading time? How are you doing with your push-ups every morning? How's it going with whatever? And we're just going to try to help everybody to stay on track. And it's a good time for me as dad, who, let's face it, isn't at the house very much throughout the
Yeah.
week.
Right.
I get time to check in with each kid and just talk to them every week. It's not a tremendous amount of time, but 15 minutes per kid for 6 kids is an hour and a half. And that's some time that I get to spend with them just to reevaluate goals, see if there's anything going on in their life they need help with. And, I don't want to think of it as like, dad's, doing a counseling session with everyone, but dad is here to try to help everyone to accomplish their goals in their life and be the best version of themselves that they can be. So that's something that I'm doing to try to help everyone with their goals and their plan.
That's an excellent idea. And I think you kind of touched on it. Besides just helping us with our goals and the kids specifically, it's going to be some special time between you and them where they can open up to you, and
Yeah.
it'll be like another bonding point.
Absolutely. What else is going on in your life?
Right.
Do you have any questions about anything? Is there anything that you're scared of? Is there anything that you're struggling with? Yeah.
And
It's time to.
Yeah, I've heard from other parents that are older than us that you need to keep those lines of communication open and keep them talking to you
Yeah.
as they get older, but they'll continue
Mhm.
to stay close to you and talk to you when they're past the age of, you must do what I say.
Yeah.
To keep the influence
Correct.
alive and them coming to you forever, hopefully.
You want to have influence over your kids, and at a certain point in their life, you only get that influence if they give it to you.
Right. That's what their point was.
Yeah. So you need to foster that relationship so that they value your opinion and they want to come to you and talk to you. The reason you're not close to your kids is because you've made no effort to be close to your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Anyone that wants to be close to their kids can be close to their kids, because the only thing that kids want is to be close to their mom and dad.
I know all they want is my ear all
That's
day.
it. They just want to spend time with mom and dad and be close to them and talk to them and hang out with them and play games with them. So it's God set it up so that having a close relationship with your child is 100% the fault of the parent if it doesn't happen.
So true.
All you have to do is put in the time. Now, it's hard to do. You're busy. You don't have the time. some of the conversations your kids want to have with you, you just want to blow your brains out because you're busy and
Oh,
they're
man.
talking about nonsense that doesn't matter in the world. But what you got to understand is if you're not willing to sit there and listen to them and talk to them, and I don't want to say pretend to be interested, but
You have to make an effort
you have to
because
make an effort to be interested.
yeah.
If you don't do that,
Yeah.
then they will stop wanting to come to you and they'll find someone else that'll be interested. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to listen to the 15-minute discussion about the turtle.
Yep.
Or the, toy, or the Grace told me the other day she got Pokemon cards, and she was going on and on about the big diamond Pokemon cards.
Yeah, which means nothing
Well,
to
okay,
me.
great. I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're describing to me this whole thing, and I'm thinking, just listen and respond and
Yep.
say something.
Yeah, and I find that I force myself to ask the kids questions.
I have
Oh,
to.
great. What do you do with that? Oh, okay. How does this one work?
Yes.
And I ask them questions and that keeps them talking.
Yeah.
And that's what
Well,
builds a relationship.
and isn't that how we all feel?
Mhm.
If you have something you're really into, you wanna tell someone about it, and you wanna go on and on and on about it.
Mhm.
And when someone will sit there and at least pretend to be interested, you feel satisfied in some way, that you scratched the itch.
Absolutely.
I mean, I prob I would love to talk to you for hours about gardening or something, something else that you probably are like, "Ugh, come on."
Oh, give me a
I've
break.
heard this, and you've heard it all. That's how we all are.
And you have to do that with your kids. You have to put in that time. You got to spend time with them. You got to listen to them. Having a good relationship with your kids is not that hard. Okay?
Right,
It's
just listen.
mostly just a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay. We were talking about a couple other things that we wanted to do as far as, making some changes.
Well, changes we're making with the kids.
Well, beyond the kids, I was just going to talk about some stuff that, you and I talked about that we wanted to do. We were talking about setting aside time a few days a week in the evening that we could, study the Bible together. We do that in the mornings. We have our kind of morning routine, is what I call it, where we all get together, and we read the Bible and we pray in the mornings. But I was thinking it would be something good also to do with just you and me.
Mhm.
So no kids involved. This is just mom and dad. The kids go to bed. You and I, and I should say this also for those of you that think you don't have the time to do this and how are you going to do it and fit it in and all this. Joanna and I talked about putting on a video of our favorite Bible teacher and just going through a half hour. The lessons that he teaches are an hour long, and he goes through books of the Bible. And we're just talking about, we'll just do a half hour every, and not even every evening of the week. We only said we only have this many days where it's really going to work. But that's what we were going to do. And we're going to have our Bibles out and we can take some notes and I can kind of get ready for teaching, that same subject another time. And you can feel like you have, a Bible, a book of the Bible under your belt where you feel confident with it. And and that's all we were going to do. And we're going to have a time where it's no more time for me. There's no prep work for me. And this is the same thing I've told people before. It's like you can start your own home Bible study. Literally just put in a DVD of a preacher that does a good job of teaching the Bible, and you put out a few bags of chips and have some coffee on, and everyone watches the thing for half an hour, and then you talk about it for 15 minutes. And you as the facilitator, all you really have to do is while you're watching this video, write down 2 or 3 questions that can be, questions of discussion, and bada bing, everybody goes home. You just had a Bible study.
Yeah.
You had someone teach the Bible. It didn't have to be you. You didn't have to spend hours getting ready for it. With the technology we have nowadays, it's very easy, to go through this and do this. So anyway, for us, we just decided we want to add a little bit more. We want to have something that's just the 2 of us and we can kind of talk about, and we can, go over the Bible a little more and do it together as parents, so that was something that we decided to add. And, we talked about, we're only going to do it 3 nights a week. because that's realistically what we have. The weekends are terrible. So we said we're not even going to try. Friday is church. And on Thursday, there's a lot of weeks where I'll go out and play pickleball in the evening after work. So we said, okay, let's try it, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah, it's
Better than
something.
nothing.
Yep, it's a little step, and it, something that I was excited that we're going to do.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of, I've been struggling, I was telling you, for a long time, staying interested in making myself sit down and be still and read the Bible and pray. Like, I used to really love it in college and when I didn't have kids and all the burdens of being a
A mom and a
stay-at-home,
wife.
yeah, a busy person, busier. And, it's been really hard to get back into that mental state of where I'm like, "Oh, I cannot wait to sit down with my Bible and my coffee or whatever," because I was there for a while. I
Yeah.
loved it. But, Bible talks about the cares of the world,
Mhm.
and I do read my Bible and pray, but it's an exercise of obedience where it's been tough to just get back there.
Mhm.
Every morning we get up and I'm sitting there and I can't wait to
To
start my
be
to-do
done
list.
so
I
you
can get
can
to the
get
more
back to
important
work.
things.
Yep.
So I'm excited, that you suggested it.
Yeah.
And to put it out there, ladies out there, go ahead and let yourself be helped out and follow your husband and
Yeah.
let him lead you because I needed that and I didn't think to do it. And God brought that through you.
Mhm.
And as the wife, the weaker vessel, I was praying about this for a
Yeah.
long time. Like, I need help, Lord. I'm trying. I want to
Mhm.
love your word again. And he knows.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am so sorry, Lord. I
Yeah.
can't wait to stop reading my Bible right now so I can get to the tasks at hand.
Mhm.
I was straight up with him.
Yeah.
So I'm putting a plug in, not well, for women to let your husband lead you because he will. God will help him do it
Mhm.
in a way you can't.
So me and the kids have been reading the Bible and praying in the morning for
A couple of
years and years. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I have wanted you to be a part of that from day one,
Mhm.
but you weren't.
I know.
You weren't getting up and doing it. And I would ask you about it a couple, 3 times a year. That was it. And for me, that was one where it's like, okay, I know this is what she should be doing with the family. I know this is what I want her doing with the family. I know this is what the kids want their mom doing with the family. I know this is what God is telling her she should be doing with the family. Like, I know this is the case. Okay. Textbook, clear cut time to put your foot down and say, look, this is what we got to do. Okay. I never did that.
I know.
I was like, she knows God's given her the pressure. He's going to be putting the screws to her. She sees us doing it every week. All she has to do is get up, whatever, this much earlier, and be a part of it. And for me, I would bring it up, but I would, just casually bring it up and you would, I don't know,
What was in my way was getting the lunches ready and the breakfast.
Mhm.
So a lot of the times I'd be out in the kitchen
Mhm.
getting that done.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
Excuses. Sorry.
To my defense, when you started, I was going through that one of the worst health issues I had had, and I was
Sure.
feeling sick.
Yeah.
In the mornings, it was harder to, get myself going.
Mhm.
You don't feel well. And, I mean, one of the things that was alleviated was I was making the lunches maybe a little bit earlier
Mhm.
or doing it at night, which I'm gonna, be doing now.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Well, anyway, God made a change, and now you're there and you
I
like
am
doing
it, but
Yeah.
I go through the exercise of just obedience, just doing it out of sheer obedience because I feel under so much pressure to
Sure.
get all these things done.
And I should comment on this because some people, I've heard Christians say this. Okay. Well, if you're not doing it with the joy of the Lord, then, that
Doesn't count?
yeah, it doesn't
No.
count.
That's not true.
You're an idiot. if you think that.
I know.
You are an absolute moron who doesn't know their Bible. If you think that obeying God doesn't count because you're not happy about it, let me tell you, that is not in the Bible. Okay. Would it be better if you loved obeying God? Sure.
It'd be easier.
But guess what? Back in Exodus, when Moses came down off the mountain and all the people were naked and dancing around a golden idol, and he told the Levites to get out your swords and start killing everybody that's worshiping these pagan idols, 3,000 people died that day. You want to know what? Millions of people were not worshiping an idol, and they might have really wanted to,
Probably.
but they
I
didn't.
mean, yeah.
And guess what? They were alive that day because they obeyed God. It doesn't matter what you want. Okay. God loves obedience. Does God love a cheerful giver? Well, sure he does. Okay. But he wants your tithe, whether you're cheerful or not. Okay. God expects obedience. So to all those morons that don't know their Bible and they think, oh, well, if you're not going to have, the love of God in your heart when you do it, then you shouldn't even do it. You're an idiot. Okay. We should obey God because he says so, and there are blessings included. It has no bearing on the world, how you feel.
You're not going to feel like doing the right thing most of your life.
No.
I mean, I don't. Maybe I'm just not a good person.
I'm the same.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I
we
think,
obey God out of duty.
Yeah. And that's why.
And that's fine. Duty has won wars.
Right.
Just do your duty.
Yeah.
I was talking with the kids about that sometime in this last week. We brought it up because you and I, with the kids in the morning, are going over the last couple chapters in the book of Exodus. And they were mind-numbingly boring. And I brought that up. I said, kids, we're reading this chapter and we're just getting through it. And that's the best we're going to do, because it's talking about the boards and the fillets and the sockets and the ouches of silver and the curtains and the, and the, red and blue and purple and fine twined linen and badger skins and the, and all this stuff about making the tabernacle. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. This is boring. And we try to find a nugget here or there that, we can learn something from. But one of the lessons I had was, we are going to read through this and we are going to get through this. And the lesson is, we read our Bible even when we don't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
And none of us felt like reading that chapter. It was difficult to get through. It was difficult to find something we could learn from it. We just got through it.
Yeah.
And that is how you obey God. We just obey. It's not always going to feel like a mountaintop experience. One of my favorite sayings from Zach is, living a Christian life, 50% of the days of any year are going to be below average.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's true.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Just by statistics alone tell you that, out of the 52 times you meet to preach as a pastor, 26 of those times are going to be below average.
Mm.
Okay. That's just statistics. There's no way around that. So it's the same as a Christian. Half of the days of every year you live as a Christian, you're going to feel below average as far as that's just the way it works.
Right.
You still obey God in those times. You still get up and read your Bible. You still get up and pray. You still put your foot forward and do the next right thing.
Well, and my point with that was to say, I've been asking for God's help.
Mm-hmm.
I told him how badly I've been doing, and he knew.
Sure.
And I was like, I don't want to feel this way. So can you help me out, Lord? I want to do the right thing and I want to enjoy it. So I think he answered that prayer with us studying together in the evenings. Maybe he can spark that back in me, that real.
Well, and you won't have that nagging feeling
or the day coming ahead.
I got the day that's going to start. I need to make a to-do list. I need to.
The evening's there, day's over. Mm-hmm. And I would guarantee you most busy parents feel the way I do most mornings.
I always have stuff I could be doing for work and it's the same thing. And there are times when I get up a little late. My morning routine is a little slow. One of the kids is behind and they're still in their pajamas because their alarm didn't go off. So instead of we're all getting down to the table by 6:30 to start reading, we're down there at 6:55. It's like, so then there are times when it's like, okay, if we're going to do this, I'm going to be a little late to work. Are we just going to cut this out and skip part of it and not, take it seriously and be in a rush? Or am I just going to call my customer and say, hey, I'm running 20 minutes behind. I'm still going to be there.
Yeah.
I had a time in my life where I would always cut everything short and get off to work. And I've literally turned 180. And now I'm like, I could care less about any job that I have in the week. I can start a half hour late. The day's not going, no one's going to die. The day isn't going to explode. I'm going to sit here with the kids and we're going to finish reading the Bible and praying and talking about whatever we feel like we need to start the day. Okay, so we talked about a handful of other things that I just want to kind of mention for people. We talked about the kids and time that we're going to allow them to play video games and watch TV. So basically screen time, in general. We talked about what we want to do also where we're physically for the two of us as far as, diet and working out and some of these things. We made some decisions and we're going to make some changes there. And we just went through our life. And then, like I said, I had the kids all go through their lives individually. And we're just setting some goals, making some plans, and we're going to try to, accomplish a few things. We took stock of where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think this is a saying from a preacher that I really loved listening to all the time. He said, if you don't know where you're going, then any train will get you there. And that's the problem, is that so many Christian families put no time into planning and preparation. They have no vision. They don't know where they're going. It's easy for churches to do the same thing. And when that's the case,
you're gonna just wander around.
You're just going to wander around. You don't know where you're going. Mm-hmm. So you need to have a vision. You need to set some goals. You need to make a plan, for how to achieve those goals. And then you're going to go through the year and you're going to fail at half of them. Okay. Well, and that's going to happen. But you know what? For me, I can tell you that I work out more this year than I did last year. I am reading more books this year than I did last year. I made changes in my life and they've all been good for me. And I'm thrilled because of little things that I've changed that have, helped me, helped my family. They've been good for everybody around me. It doesn't matter if I achieve every goal that I set. It just matters that I set some plans and I start moving in the direction of those goals. If I can do that every year, I'm going to be a better person every year than I was the year before. I'm not going to be stuck in a rut. I don't care if I fail at some. I don't care if I totally cross some off. Some might be totally unrealistic. Things change in my life. I don't have the time that I thought I did. Whatever. I just never want to be in a place in my life where I don't sit down and take inventory of my life and set some goals and make a plan. I never want to be in that case. I never want our family to be there. I never want our church to be there. That's what I want to do. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the Bible Thumper Podcast, where somebody's got to say it. You can find us at BibleThumperPodcast.com. And when you go there, you can get on our social media pages, Facebook and YouTube. Please go there and subscribe to the videos. Hit the little bell icon so you get a little notification when a video comes up. And find us on Google Play, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Amazon, Audible, you can find our podcast everywhere that you find a podcast. Please like it, share it, listen to it, download it, and comment on it. It helps get the podcast around to other people. Thank you for joining us. You can find us almost every single Sunday night. Usually we start right at 7 o'clock, but when we have AV issues, sometimes we start half an hour later because everything fell apart. But every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, you can find us on here. And we are talking about a variety of controversial subjects in the Bible. And whenever Joanna and I get together, we are talking about Christian families. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.